Hey everyone! Today, I'm diving into a story packed with intrigue, power, and choices that shaped the history of Israel. We're talking about Jezebel, one of the most iconic and controversial figures in the Bible. A queen, a strategist, and a symbol of idolatry, Jezebel left a legacy that is as fascinating as it is tragic. But more than that, her life teaches us profound lessons about pride, influence, and God's sovereignty. Are you ready for this journey? Let's dive in. It all begins in Sidon, a city-state that was part of ancient Phoenicia. Jezebel was the daughter of Baal, the king of that region. From a young age, she was raised in an environment devoted to the worship of Baal and Asherah, deities promising prosperity and fertility, but requiring dark sacrifices and rituals. When Jezebel married Ahab, king of Israel, their union wasn't just political, it was also spiritual. Jezebel brought her gods to Israel and with them, all the spiritual corruption she carried. She wasn't just a queen. She was a woman determined to establish Baal's dominance over a nation that was supposed to be dedicated to the God of Israel. Here's an important reflection. How do our origins and beliefs influence the decisions we make? Jezebel used her power to impose her convictions, but this raises the question, are we letting our past define us, or are we allowing ourselves to be shaped by God? Romans 12 verse 2 challenges us not to conform to this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Ahab was a king who, despite his title, proved weak in the face of his wife's determination. He should have led the people in obedience to the Lord, but instead, he allowed himself to be influenced by Jezebel. It didn't take long for Israel to be plunged into idolatry. Jezebel didn't just erect altars to Baal. She eliminated the Lord's prophets and instilled fear among those who remained faithful to God. Elijah, one of the most courageous prophets, had to hide to escape her wrath. Now, think about this. Who are the people influencing your life? Are we surrounded by advisors who draw us closer to God, or by those who pull us away? Proverbs 13 verse 20 reminds us, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." The story of Naboth is one of the darkest moments in Jezebel's history. Ahab desired Naboth's vineyard, but Naboth refused to sell it, adhering to the law that prohibited selling family inheritances. Instead of accepting the refusal, Ahab returned home sulking, acting like a spoiled child. Jezebel, seeing her husband's despair, took matters into her own hands. She devised a cruel plan, manipulating local leaders to falsely accuse Naboth of blasphemy and treason. The result? Naboth was stoned to death, and Ahab seized a vineyard. This event teaches us about the danger of using power to promote injustice. How often do pride and ego lead us to make decisions that hurt others? God condemns injustice, as written in Micah 6 verse 8. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. But God never leaves his people without hope. At the height of idolatry in Israel, he raised Elijah, a bold and faithful prophet, to challenge Jezebel and the prophets of Baal. The scene on Mount Carmel is breathtaking. Elijah challenged 450 prophets of Baal to call upon their God to send fire from heaven to consume the sacrifice. They cried out, shouted, and even cut themselves, but nothing happened. Then Elijah prayed to the God of Israel, and fire descended, consuming the sacrifice and even the water around the altar. This event was a turning point, an undeniable demonstration that the Lord is the one true God. Now let's reflect. How many times do we find ourselves calling upon gods that never respond? Whether it's money, success, or anything else we place before God, we always end up disappointed. Psalm 20 verse 7 reminds us, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God." Even after the event on Mount Carmel, Jezebel remained defiant. When she learned that Elijah had defeated the prophets of Baal, she vowed revenge. Elijah, though courageous, fled to save his life, showing that even the most faithful servants of God face moments of fear and weakness. Jezebel's pride prevented her from acknowledging God's power. Her obstinacy teaches us that hardening our hearts can keep us from the blessings God has for us. And what about us? Are we allowing pride to stop us from repenting and seeking God? James 4 verse 6 reminds us, God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. After Ahab's death, Jezebel remained influential for a time, but God's justice was on the way. Jehu was anointed to end Ahab's lineage and eradicate idolatry in Israel. When Jehu arrived in Jezreel, Jezebel, in a final attempt to wield power, appeared at the window, adorned in makeup and confident. But the eunuchs, obeying Jehu's order, threw her down. Her body was devoured by dogs, fulfilling Elijah's prophecy. This brutal end reminds us that no one escapes God's judgment. Our actions have consequences, and divine justice will prevail. Galatians 6 verse 7 says, Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Jezebel leaves us with profound lessons. 1. Idolatry leads to destruction. When we place anything before God, we are walking toward failure. 2. Pride blinds us. Jezebel had many opportunities to repent, but chose rebellion. 3. God is just. His justice may seem delayed, but it is always certain. Now it's your turn to reflect. What does Jezebel's story teach you about your own choices? Are we allowing wrong influences to pull us away from God? Share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, and remember, the stories in the Bible aren't just from the past. They're mirrors for our lives today. May we learn from them and walk closer to God.